Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear visitors. Allow me to declare the session dedicated to the discussion of Sergey Antoshkin's dissertation, Brand Management of Innovation Products. To declare the session begun by the order of St. Petersburg State University issued on the 10th of January 2018, I, Dr. Elena Korostashevskaya, of the Department of Economic Theory and Policy, St. Petersburg State University, was appointed the chairperson of this council. Allow me to introduce my co-members of the Dissertation Council. Elena Vorobyova, Department of Economic Developments, Research and Economic Research and Development, St. Petersburg State University. Joining us online is Dr. Vladimir Platonov, Department of Enterprise Economy and Management, and Kirsten Pelstold, Ilmenau University, Germany. First of all, I would like to point out that following the federal law number 127 on science and research policy, St. Petersburg State University was awarded the right to award its own academic degrees. Based on the regulations on the award of academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, number 68/1, I would like to say that the session of the Dissertation Council is considered to be legal if participated by no less than 2/3 of the total composition of the Dissertation Council. We have 4 members on our panel, with 2 members joining us online. The quorum is present. I would like to announce the agenda for our today's session, which will take 2 hours. The session will open by the presentation from the chairperson, with 5 more minutes given for the question and answer session. The defendant will then summarize the key provisions and tenets of his dissertation. He will have 15 minutes to do so. There will be questions from the audience, and time will be allocated to address these questions. After which, members of the Dissertation Council will provide their reviews on the dissertation. The defendant will then be allocated 15 minutes to address the critical comments. This will be followed by a brief comment and question session where some suggestions and comments will be made on the subject of the dissertation. Anyone wishing to join this discussion must register and enter their names in the special list on the special list provided. The defendant will then address the questions and comments. There will be 3 minutes allocated for the presentation of the academic supervisor. The panel will then hold council on and start a discussion on the question of awarding or non-awarding of the academic degree sought. There will be an open vote, and afterwards the decision of the Dissertation Council will be announced. Allow me to remind you to switch off your mobiles or switch them to vibrate or silent. The session will be audio and video recorded and broadcast through the St. Petersburg State University portal. Simultaneous translation from Russian into English will be provided. Allow me to declare the session begun. The first item on our agenda is a brief report from the Chairperson of the Dissertation Council. The dissertation, the PhD dissertation created by Sergey Antoshkin on the subject brand management of innovation products was accepted for defense on the 12th of February 2018. The Dissertation Council was appointed by decree of St. Petersburg State University number 32/1, as I have pointed out already. The following documents have been submitted. A letter of application addressed to Rector Gorbachev, requesting to submit the dissertation for defense. Review written by the academic advisor, Doctor of Economics Professor Nikolai Molchanov. A list of publications containing 6 works, including 3 articles published in peer-reviewed journals, approved by the Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation. A certificate of education, number 04A81, issued by St. Petersburg State University, confirming that Mr. Antoshkin had taken a course of postgraduate studies in economics and management, and taken 3 qualification exams in philosophy and history of science, foreign language, and economy and management. A document certifying that the dissertation is indeed eligible for defense, signed by Vice Rector for Science, Professor Tunik. The dissertation, which specifies the place and time of its drafting. Finally, supplement number 1 to the order issued by St. Petersburg State University. Let us proceed to our agenda, and I would like to give the floor to the defendant, Mr. Sergey Antoshkin. Let me remind you that you only have 15 minutes. Dear Chairperson of the Dissertation Council, dear members of the Dissertation Council, allow me to present my dissertation work, brand management of innovative produce. When we talk about innovations, we largely mean risks, because all innovations involve some amount of risk. Brand management enables one to reduce the risks relating to innovation activities of a company. The relevance, the academic relevance of this dissertation is dependent on these factors. The dissertation also has practical value because strong brands enable companies to reduce brand risks. However, there are very few publications where brand management and innovations would be considered jointly. As for the goal and objectives of my dissertation, my goal was to suggest a model aimed at reducing risks associated with innovative products by using brand management tools and instruments. My objectives included providing the required definitions. We all seem to know what brand is, what brand management is. However, if we approach this topic in the scientific context, we immediately understand just how controversial these notions are. The second objective was to conduct empirical research, an empirical study. We all know theoretically that brand management is supposed to increase brand success. What I'm trying to find out is how effective brand management is in a real corporate context, whether or not it actually brings about any positive financial outcomes. The next objective was to create the brand capital model. I wanted to identify the specific mechanisms associated with this field. Next, I planned to develop marketing indicators. When we talk about marketing brand management, we need to have tools to conduct brand management. We need to identify the relevant indicators. We need to identify the tools that enable one to address these issues. Finally, brand marketing support. I collected the required materials on marketing tools, on algorithms, which the companies may use to enhance the efficiency of innovative brand promotion, thereby improving their sales. As for the object and subject of my research, the object of my research were the processes in Russian commercial companies. As far as the scope is concerned, I was interested in brand management. I used traditional methods of theoretical and empirical studies. Also used a number of statistical approaches. The conceptual basis of this research included the existing statistical data and empirical studies. I also used the publications and conference proceedings on the subject. Let me focus on academic relevance. First of all, I have suggested an interpretation, a particular interpretation of brand management. When I started working on this topic, I was stunned by the sheer number of approaches to brand management that exist in modern science. I wanted to bring them together and to make some kind of synthesis, suggest some kind of common model for brand management that I could build on. Indicators. The indicators that I have identified for the success of brand management is also an element of novelty. The study is empirical, which is a novel approach too. I will focus on the novelty factors in more detail later. Talking about brand management, what is important is this process has to have some research substance. It must be based on scientific facts, even though brand management is sometimes seen as just some kind of supplement to marketing product management. So we need to have some specific tools, not creative tools, but valid scientific tools for brand management. When we talk about value created by the brand, we mean value for the customer and for the consumer and for the company. This is something that needs to be coordinated. How brand management coordinates with the company strategy, with the company's strategic goals. For effective brand management, it's not enough to have good marketing. Coordination is needed to those that create this product and to all other fields where the company is active. We need to build on a complex of material and non-material, tangible and non-tangible assets of the company. We need to create an environment within which effective brand management is possible. It's a very important question. Brand capital model. Initially, it was based on a brand asset model. However, I supplemented it and connected this model with a brand touchpoint model. I see it as some type of funnel where at every stage you could consider the interconnections between assets and consumers. This approach enables one to identify the bottlenecks and the weak points that need improvement. Indicators that characterize brand assets. They were built on a large number of marketing indicators at every stage. I wanted to focus on the negative values of these indicators. Most studies only focus positive loyalty. Very few are inclined to consider negative loyalty, even though this issue is tantamount to excellent management. It helps you to identify the weak points. It helps you to identify areas for improvement. Empirical studies were aimed to validate two hypotheses. The more attention the company pays to brand management, the more effective its marketing activity is, and the higher the innovative activity of a company, the higher the efficiency of the marketing strategy. The key correlation is between brand marketing and innovation and marketing success. These are some issues that I tested, that the respondents had to agree or disagree with respect to brand management and innovations. Another interesting conclusion is that the companies were segregated into those that do practice brand management and those that don't. Those that don't invent in their brands, they don't analyze their brand management efficiency, So the former companies, the companies that did practice brand management, displayed higher results, better efficiency of their marketing activities, which confirms that the study is indeed highly relevant.
So we also have a separate application in Word, and this outlines 4 key stages. The first one is the establishment, the creation of the product, which I elaborate in great detail, and the creation of the innovative product itself. Next is the value, the consumer value. A product is not enough. A product should entail a value, and therefore, anticipating the product creation, we have to analyze consumer needs. This is all about fundamental approaches. I mean, being able to assess the efficiency of the processes and the product overall. Well, this is it for my part. Questions to the defendant, to Sergey Antoshkin. Please ask questions relevant to the report. Members of the dissertation panel, do you have any questions to the defendant? Sergey, thank you so much for your report. It was fascinating. My question is about negative loyalty. What are the factors that shape negative loyalty? Well, those are the negative attitudes or the anticipation of the customer that was violated by the product that was not delivered on. So eventually the consumer is dissatisfied with the product and so much indignant about it that a potential consumer would not merely resist to buy this product, but would generate negative responses or negative feedback about this product. This also involves disrupted communication between the product and the target consumer. So the consumer may be negative about the product even without trying it, even without buying it. Thank you. Next question is on hypothesis 1. Your hypothesis is that a more intensive focus should be attached to brand management. Well, did you speculate about changing the brands? And if yes, then in what situations? Well, there is a variety of those, I should say. Well, for example, an enterprise with some specific resources, and all of a sudden this enterprise decides to switch to a different segment. Therefore, rebranding is required. There's no other way to promote this product into the market otherwise. Thank you. Olga, are you satisfied with the replies? Yes, I'm fully satisfied. Thank you. More questions? I have a question to ask. Yes, please, Professor Kerstin. So you've came up with this model. So what is the most important stage in brand equity to you, in shaping brand equity, I mean? Well, I think that none of those is more important than others. All of them are equally crucial. It is loopholes that we should focus at. So I cannot say straightforwardly that some specific phase is more important at the benefit of the others. Otherwise, if we outline some more important phase, this may result in detrimental consequences. More questions? Please, Vladimir, your question. Sergey, my question is about the coefficient, the brand equity coefficient. So when you shortlisted these coefficients, what were you guided by? Well, overall, I referred to these coefficients within the brand management framework. Obviously, these coefficients are ancillary to my dissertation. What is crucial is the brand management framework. So the negative, then their negative value utmostly. That's clear? Okay. I see no one else willing to ask questions to Sergey. Therefore, let's proceed to declaring the report. Sergey, please be seated. Now members of the dissertation panel are urged to declare their reports. Professor Kirstin submitted her report, as well as Professor Platonov, a Doctor of Economic Sciences, St. Petersburg State University, Dr. Konoplova Olga, Professor, Doctor of Economics, St. Petersburg State University, Professor Alexeyev, Professor at the Department of Economics and Business Management, St. Petersburg State University of Economics, and Professor Kostoryshevskaya, Professor of Economics, St. Petersburg State University. All of the reports, according to Provision 9 of the Academic Degree Awarding Procedure of St. Petersburg State University, have been timely downloaded to St. Petersburg State University website. Now I would like to give the floor to the members of the dissertation panel who are remotely together with us, and I invite Professor Platonov to take the floor. Thank you so much, Elena. Well, Sergey looked into a highly relevant topic. Indeed, companies with stronger brands are more efficient in terms of innovation. So, why is it so? It is a highly controversial issue. Sergey has successfully delivered on this challenge, generating some new results, some new knowledge, in particular the brand equity management model. The issue is that in Russia, we once again are confronted with a translation problem. So brand equity is a very specific term. It belongs to the area of finance. On the other hand, as in any other approaches, capital or equity is a general parameter which stretches far beyond the area of finance. So Sergey's understanding of capital or equity is a broader one. And this makes his model highly exciting, highly innovative. What's more, well, obviously, there is something to improve in the dissertation. And this is what I would like to focus, because my overall evaluation of the dissertation is clear. My recommendations refer to the issues that are beyond actually the scope of the dissertation, or refer to some particular, very specific aspects. But the first one is as follows. The defendant analyzed a variety of approaches, but his approach is very broad. So, brand management, in the way it is specific, depends on the strategic dimension. Therefore, the defendant suggests that all company departments have to be engaged. However, brand management has to be carried out at a strategic level as well as at the level of regular operations. And this is true for innovative companies in particular. That's the first point. The second point, the chapter on brand value is a little bit oversimplified. So Sergey claims that there's a variety of methods that are inefficient overall. However, each method is tailored to a specific task. So, however, it is better to have something than nothing in practice. Therefore, brand efficiency is a feasible method in this respect, as well as the brand value assessment method. Third point. Well, here I would like to look into, to assume a broader view. The defendant refers to the term resource-based management, and it is a broader term. Regrettably, the translation into Russian is failing once again in as many other cases. The differences in resources depends on the different approaches. So we have intellectual capital, which is one of the aspects of a brand as well. Sergey refers to not to resource management, but to the way the company positions itself on the market. This inaccuracy should be kept in mind because it might be crucial in further analysis. So, especially once we focus on the internal resources of a company. And lastly, the fourth recommendation says that the defendant should have paid more focus to B2B and B2C markets and the implementation of suggested methods in these markets. This is particularly true about the network, the IT economy. That's it for my part. I'm done. Thank you, Vladimir. Then next, I would like to give the floor to Kerstin Petzold, Professor Petzold. Thank you so much, Professor Korostashevskaya. This dissertation is highly relevant. I have analyzed lots of dissertations. However, never ever have I encountered a dissertation so deeply analyzing the cross-pollination between the brand management, the marketing, the brand value, and economy. Therefore, I deem that the suggested model is fascinating. It's highly practical. As for the academic potential of the dissertation, what I love most is the chapter on the brand management and bringing together the three approaches in brand management: the company approach, the consumer approach, and the strategy overall. As well as the specific traits in innovative product management. The consumer model of brand capital management is very functional. I would like to highlight the fact that the three stages that are elaborated, I mean the experience before making a purchase, in the process of making a purchase, and after it, is indeed innovative. What's more, the coefficients were very fascinating to look at, as well as the secondary, the additional coefficients in marketing that allow to evaluate the efficiency of a product. Rarely do defendants perform empirical analysis. This dissertation includes a meticulous empirical analysis to prove the direct relation between the brand management efficiency and the marketing output. Well, as for some issues for discussion, well, despite the fact that we find an empirical analysis in the dissertation, nevertheless, it is still highly theoretical. These coefficients are very well elaborated. However, I would wonder whether the defendant could refer to a practical example, a case in point, of how this overall framework would work in practice. So Do you have any experience in implementing your own original suggestions? On page 158, there is a specific paragraph on marketing potential development and its theoretical justification. Why did you decide to have this paragraph in the text of your dissertation? I'm asking because you never refer to these issues in the text of your dissertation anywhere else. Well, there's something to clarify in the empirical chapter. Most questions would refer to brand justification, but I wonder whether it is possible to come up with any answers whatsoever once we discuss several brands of one and the same company. I think that you could have done a more careful, a more accurate survey in this respect, taking into account these parameters. Oh, these are my recommendations, but in general, I loved the dissertation. Thank you so much. Kirsten, thank you. Now I would like to give the floor to Professor Korablova, Professor, Economics Department, St. Petersburg State University. Please, the floor is yours, Professor Korablova.
Dear colleagues, allow me to present my review of Mr. Antoshkin's dissertation. First of all, I would like to point out that the topic selected is highly relevant. The dissertation considers issues of innovation management and branding support. Effective brand management should result in increased sales, reduction of market risks, and a number of other positive outcomes. This is relevant for products other than innovative. However, innovative products do have a number of very, very specific and very unique aspects. Innovation branding is an issue that has sadly been overlooked by researchers. Many recommendations that have been suggested for brand management may not be adequate to market reality. Lack of theoretical background and the absence of models that have practical value can serve as vicarious proof for the fact that brand management is only too often ineffective. It is necessary to suggest theories and methodologies and methodological approaches to innovation brand management, which makes the dissertation highly relevant. The conclusions and recommendations made in the study are well-founded and well-confirmed by scientific evidence. The author has studied 286 published sources, most of them in English. The author has published several articles in reputable, peer-reviewed journals. The author also presented the results of his study at a number of national and international conferences. The author has identified the interrelation, the correlation between brand management and corporate marketing activities. The novelty and reliability of the provisions of the dissertation are well-founded in the introductory part of the dissertation. The author has made a significant contribution to the terminological inventory and methodological inventory of economics. The author has analyzed the key definitions of brand equity and brand equity models and suggested his own interpretation of the term. Based on Davis and Dunn's concept, whereby the relations between brands and customers, consumers, can be interpreted through the touchpoint model. The author has suggested a number of metrics, factors, which may take either positive or negative values. The author suggests using target audiences as the foundation, as the basis for brand equity management. This would be far more informative than pure numerical data. The author also provides results of an empirical study or of innovation activities and marketing activities. In Chapter 3, the author creates a model, builds a model of marketing support for innovation sales. The model has many advantages. It is systemic. It presents an integrated overview of many issues highly pertinent to brand management, especially to innovation brand management. Despite the high scientific relevance and novelty, there are a number of contradictory, controversial statements. First of all, it may be very interesting to consider issues related to internet marketing or multi-channel promotion of innovation products. This would enable the author to expand the conclusions that he arrives at in his study. In addition, when studying the brand management issues in innovation companies, it would be highly advisable to consider these issues depending on the specificity of the brand products in the digital environment. On the whole, the dissertation is consistent with the requirements of Order number 68/1 on the award of academic degrees of at St. Petersburg State University. The defendant, Mr. Antoshkin, merits the academic degree sought in the subject field economics and economy management. Thank you. Thank you, Olga. I would like to present my own review of the dissertation now. The Russian government consistently calls for activation of innovative development in the economy of the Russian Federation. However, the effects, the developments in these areas are largely insignificant. Innovation costs are growing. However, their implementation in the socio-economic sphere is lagging behind. One of the key reasons for it is the lack of ability, the lack of competence in innovation, product promotion, and market integration. We rarely correlate consumer needs with innovation concepts and fail to use the branding potential to its maximum. So the subject selected by the defendant for the dissertation is highly interesting, it's highly relevant and very timely. The work displays a high degree, a high level of reliability. It is well-founded, owing to the broad use of empirical material, supplemented by the analysis of Russian and foreign publications in the field of marketing, branding, innovation management, as well as governmental statistical data and the information from the databases of leading international organizations. The key problem identified by the author is highly salient, is highly relevant. The author has made his study even more effective by building a solid theoretical and methodological basis. There are a number of issues that make a significant contribution to the current field, to the current research field. It is very interesting that the author distinguishes between value and costs, as well as real and perceived characteristics of the product. The differing levels of real, objective, and perceived quality are justly correlated with the differentiated objectives of the corporate marketing activity. It is also interesting to follow the author's analysis of marketing potential. Based on the key definitions of marketing potential presented in the known publications, the author joins a conversation, joins a dialogue with other market scientists about market orientation and distinguishes between client-oriented and identifies client-oriented markets. Another important contribution is the author's interpretation of brand management on page 6 to 9. To make this definition, to create this definition, the author selected a very original analytical logic. The author first analyzes the limitations in trying to provide a universal definition of a brand. And then to overcome these limitations, the author introduces the system of corporation-customer coordinates. Then he continues to study the differences between concepts of trademark, trade name, and commercial symbol. Finally, he provides his own interpretation of differences between branding, brand management, and brand governance. He also makes some very valuable observations regarding corporate objectives in terms of brand innovation, brand management, and suggests commentaries which can serve as guidelines for brand management by practicing marketologists. Another achievement of the author is identifying different types of brands depending on positioning strategies and the classification of these brand types. The author builds a matrix of brand types on identifying their weak points and strong points on pages 92 and 94. The empirical study confirming the link between brand management, innovation activity, and variables characterizing the result of marketing activities is correctly conducted. It confirms the hypotheses suggested by the author, and is based on questionnaire data, on survey data. The conclusions are in Table 40 are therefore reliable. Another novelty factor is the author's concept of brand asset valuation. This valuation is something that we rarely find in dissertations. The methodology used by the author is simple, effective, and would be very valuable to market researchers. The author creates a very well-founded model for marketing support of product innovations. It is highly important that the author makes some very valuable suggestions in Clause 5, forming key consumer values. Failure of Russian market researchers to identify the key value very often leads to brand inefficiency. As for touch points, it is highly important that the author actually considers building customer trust as one of the key ingredients in the success of the brand. Finally, the author displays some valuable knowledge of project management concepts. However, there are a number of problematic statements and shortcomings in the dissertation. The subject of the dissertation is probably too broad and is best suited for a postdoctoral dissertation rather than a PhD dissertation. It is highly questionable whether the problems considered in parts 1.1 and 1.2 is indeed necessary. The author fails to produce an original analysis of much data that cannot be considered very original or little known. The author fails to provide a definition of marketing potential or characterize this potential for innovative companies. Some conclusions are difficult to agree with. Even though the author analyzes the concepts of brand and trademark as very different, he makes the conclusion that it is difficult to distinguish between the two concepts. Now, this is a contradiction in terms. It is not very clear why the author should address customer loyalty management. Even though the materials in part 2.1 are fairly effective, the brand equity model developed by the author is indeed a very insignificant modernization of the touchpoint model produced by Davis and Dunn. The author all too often uses the quotations and from publications, avoiding his own interpretation of the terms. However, Mr. Antoshkin's dissertation is compliant with the requirements established by the Order 6821/1 on the award of scientific academic degrees by St. Petersburg State University. Mr. Antoshkin merits the academic degree sought. Let us continue, and I would like to give the floor to Andrei Alexeyev, Professor of St. Petersburg State Economic University. Andrei, you are welcome.
Well, I would like to start with the relevance of the topic. The problem formulated in the dissertation is about the marketing tools to enhance the diffusion of innovative products. Well, the problem of the research, the objective of the research is marketing innovation. Formally, this issue is classified as according to the dissertation specialization. The defendant has successfully engaged in the most relevant global discussion headed by Van Kiesel, Eckel, and so many other luminary economists. The subject of the discussion is diffusion and identification of innovative products and markets. This discussion is focused and is tailored to the Russian context and Russian businesses, which makes the dissertation highly relevant to promote Russian products on a global scale. But I deem justified the recommendations and the findings put forward by the defendant. The methods of the dissertation correspond to the key knowledge generation principles. The problems and the scope of the dissertation conforms the existing discussions. There are lots of cases that are feasibly explained. The experiment in Chapter 3 is in conformity with the declared hypothesis in innovation marketing. As for the innovative aspect of the dissertation, the first and the second hypothesis focus on the fact that today marketing efficiency is calculated by the brand innovation investment. The author is innovative in looking into non-material equity, non-material capital, in particular intellectual capital. And this is what justifies the innovative nature of the dissertation. As for the 4 key innovative findings, those include a broader brand classification based on brand capacities by introducing and justifying the specific classes of budget innovative products. This allows us to tailor this model to existing global brand promotion strategies. Next is the consumer experience, which includes 3 contact points with the innovative brand. In national context, the investment indicator was clarified. So sales for Russian businesses are ensured by long-term investment strategies in innovative brands. Number 5, the Rogers diffusion model has been elaborated in brand and consumer communication. Overall, the theoretical relevance of the research is justified by the introduction of new provisions into brand management process. The practical aspect of the dissertation includes specific aspects related to Russian businesses. However, there are some provisions that could that I would like to discuss. The defendant refers to a vast amount of resources. I think it would have been more practical to refer to some specific school of economics. What's more, the terminology is, and the explanation of terminology is too wordy, I should say, which blurs actually the overall output, the general idea. As of 2017, the innovative Russian economy underwent structural transformations that are beyond the scope of the dissertation, regrettably. Next, the brand innovation has various forms across all sorts of industries and technologies. This variation does not consider the brand diffusion. Therefore, I would actually doubt the universal nature of these tools and instruments. Fourth, the brand value structure, page 32, illustration 45. So why is the composition of values exactly as depicted on this model? Fifth, the experiment could be topped by the correlation between the economy management and accounting practices, as well as marketing metrics. Lastly, the sixth point. The hypotheses declared are empirical, and therefore this makes them innovative. Regrettably, however, there is no economic dimension included. I would like to understand how can it be projected into the economic area in case of brand investment. Well, I would like that the defendant would deliver on these aspects in the future. Nevertheless, I should declare that it is an original and independent research, and all the points for discussion and my recommendations, they just establish the way forward and can be delivered on down the road. Overall, the dissertation is in conformity with the relevant requirements and documents, as well as the St. Petersburg, the academic degree awarding procedure at St. Petersburg State University, and the defendant deserves to be awarded the aspired academic degree in specialty 080005, Economics and National Economy Management. I have not come up with any other questions to the defendant. This is it for my part. Thank you so much. Now I would like to give the floor to the defendant to provide his reply to members of the dissertation panel. You've got 15 minutes maximum. First and foremost, I would like to passionately extend my gratitude to members of the dissertation panel for their enormous efforts in analyzing my dissertation and coming up with so valuable recommendations. If I may, I would like to provide my replies in a different order, however, but I believe I will be clear. My reply to Professor Korostashevskaya. Well, in my dissertation, I wanted to develop a broader context for brand management. Such approach has both its advantages as well as drawbacks. On the one hand, it allows us to look into specific aspects for efficient decision-making. On the other hand, an impediment is the fact that I failed to analyze each and every aspect within the framework of my dissertation. My reply to your second recommendation. Well, brand management is true for companies with huge potential. Therefore, I referred to marketing potential as a specific parameter. Nevertheless, this is not the cornerstone of my dissertation. Therefore, I decided to limit myself by the existing terminology. Well, we should separate between brand and trademark. Let's look at Apple or Samsung. That's easy. As for smaller companies, such distinction is very difficult to draw. Well, scholars attempt to come up with some qualitative or quantitative definition, allowing to discern between a brand and a trademark. I believe that those are not solid attempts.
Ответ на четвертое замечание.
My reply to the fourth recommendation, I'm sorry for making you wait. Well, consumer loyalty. I decided to analyze consumer loyalty in a separate paragraph to maximize the output. Businesses have to be interactive. The marketing theory, in parallel, includes both transaction marketing, which develops into the marketing of relations. Well, definitely, I looked into this model. However, the consumer actions are also important. And the funnels are crucial in this respect. And this should take into account the marketing indicators as well. So my findings are practical, nevertheless. My reply to Professor Korablova. The first reply. Well, justly, marketing without internet marketing is actually, this is not enough, basically. So therefore, I'm looking into such conceptual issues as marketing tools. This is an exciting dimension and highly practical one for me to analyze in the future. My reply to your second recommendation, well, I accept that innovative products amid digital business transformation is a very practical and promising area. And thank you very much for this hint. My response to Professor Kerstin Petzold. I agree that I'm a little bit over-focused on theoretical issues. However, here we should also keep in mind the size of the company, the innovative structure of the company, and all other issues which actually constrains some ready-made decisions. My topic is about some key areas for a business, and it's very difficult to obtain some data from businesses because those are confidential, basically. No one would provide this data. Well, marketing potential. I have already delivered on this reply in giving my replies to the former member of the dissertation panel. I agree that some wordings are inaccurate a little bit, especially when a company has several brands. However, that would overload, I believe, my dissertation. And my reply to the last recommendation. Most findings have been analyzed in previous paragraphs. Therefore, I decided not to just copy the text that is already there, and instead introduce my own vision of this model. Professor Alexeyev, first recommendation, I take it. I'm possibly too meticulous in analyzing some specific findings. However, this is necessary quite often, especially in brand innovation. Different approaches imply different brand management aspects. Therefore, I decided to analyze existing approaches and suggest my analysis so as to ensure we speak common language.
I agree that the statistical data are obsolete. Largely, this is to do with technical reasons. It's to do with the time gap between the creation of the dissertation and the defense. I agree that the concluding statements may not be universal, especially when it comes to business instruments. The use of the latter requires adaptation in consistence with the unique settings and unique situation of each enterprise. Values like technical or operational are to do with the category of quality. The moral novelty has not been introduced in the work, but I plan to do it in the future. Finally, I do agree that the correlation should be supplemented by the metrics, economic metrics of the company. However, our methodology doesn't afford this technique. It doesn't enable us to do so. Questionnaires were administered through Google Forms. The companies were selected in accordance with the criteria of our studies. However, we didn't know exactly which of the respondents actually took part in the survey. So it was not possible to conduct any numerical, any quantitative analysis on this basis. Economic effects were largely considered through marketing data, including brand awareness, brand loyalty, pricing, and other beneficial effects. The key economic effect was, of course, the rising profits. This is the economic effect that we are describing. Vladimir Platonov, Dr. Vladimir Platonov mentioned that my approach was probably too broad for the purpose. However, narrower approaches limit effective management of brand equities and brand assets. So a broad approach would be far more operational and effective. I do agree that there are many methods and many approaches to brand valuation and brand value management. Some of them are targeted at specific objectives and purposes. At the same time, there are specific situations when brand valuation is necessary. For example, brand valuation is indicated when the brand is to be acquired in case of brand acquisition. However, most valuations are easy to criticize because they are very difficult to refute. So sometimes one and the same brand can be evaluated differently by different experts. I do agree that the resource-based approach to intellectual capital fails to address the value-added mechanism. This mechanism is best studied using other approaches. However, the approach that I chose helps to create an integrated idea, an integrated concept of brand management and resource management. And the last question was concerned with specific features of differing enterprises, but I addressed this question earlier. Thank you, Sergey. Please do take your seat. And now I would like to give the floor to the research advisor, Doctor of Economics, Professor, Department of Research and Development, St. Petersburg State University, Nikolai Molchanov. Dear colleagues, as a supervisor, I am not entitled to evaluate the results and the study. I would like to focus on the characteristics of our researcher. First of all, he's an independent thinker. He approached me with some outcomes, with some experience of research, 2 years. He had obtained some results, some outcomes, and he even was awarded a prize at a prestigious competition. All I had to do is to convince him, do a little convincing, and involve him in the brand management field. Sergey studied a large amount of material. He systematized it. He's a brilliant analyst. He reads a lot in Russian, in English, and creates a highly systemic result, highly systemic findings. Another point I would like to make is that Sergey is a very meticulous type of person. You mentioned an example of practical application. Sergey decided that this example should not be included in the dissertation because it wasn't sufficiently studied. However, the results demonstrating practical applications of the matrix are there. It's just that Sergey did not think it worthy to include these results in the work because they were poorly prepared. However, I do believe that the defendant merits the academic degree sought. Thank you, Vladimir. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, it is for me now to announce that that entry is delayed for objective reasons. I would like to request your opinion. Is it possible to discuss the results of the dissertation, the findings, and to carry on with the procedure together with Andrei? So is it possible? Is it possible to include him? No objections. No objections. Question? No objections. I have no objections either, so Andrei will join our session and we will continue working I would like to now declare an interval. We will now adjourn our meeting for 5 minutes. Please terminate the broadcasting, stop the broadcasting. I would like our guests and the colleagues that are not members of the Dissertation Council to leave the auditorium. Let us proceed with the session. Please switch on the broadcasting and make sure that the broadcasting is operational. I would like to take the question on the award of the degree to the open vote. Allow me to remind you that the decision is considered in favor, positive, if voted for by at least 3/4 and no less than 3 members of the Dissertation Council. Let us begin the voting. Let us start the voting with the members joining us online. Dr. Kirsten Petzold. I vote in favor of awarding the academic degree. I really liked your defense. Thank you. Vladimir, your opinion. I vote in favor of awarding the academic degree. Thank you. Olga Koroblova. I vote in favor. Thank you, Dr. Koroblova. Dr. Alexeyev, I vote in favor. I, Dr. Elena Korostashevskaya, also vote in favor of awarding the academic degree sought to Mr. Sergey Antoshkin. In summary, allow me to announce, dear colleagues, dear guests, that 5 members of the Dissertation Council voted in favor. There were no votes against or no abstainees. I hereby declare that the Academic Council has decided in favor, unanimously decided in favor of awarding the academic degree to Sergey Antoshkin. I would like to give the floor to our defendant for some final comment.
Well, what can I say? I'm enormously grateful to all the members of the dissertation panel, to my research supervisor, for whom working with me possibly just was a lot of torture, I believe. So thank you so much for your efforts, for your contribution, and I will do my best in my endeavor so as not to fail. Thank you so much, Sergey. Now I declare the dissertation meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for participation. Please switch off the broadcasting.